Our guest today is making waves in the US for her original and quirky take on Filipino desserts. How about adobo chocolate chip cookies? Yes, you heard it right. It's possible. And that crazy concept is part of the recipes featured in the award-winning cookbook, Mayumu, which means sweet in Kapampangan. Now joining us live via Zoom from Brooklyn, New York is the brilliant mind behind it all, Chef Abi Balingit. Good morning from Manila, Chef, and good evening to you there over in Brooklyn.
Thank you so much. So good to see you all. And I know the time difference can be hard, but I'm so happy to be here.
I think it's easier for you since it's evening over there. But Chef Abby, I think we have a lot in common, minus, I think, the creative concept. You actually moved to the US, right? In San Jose, you were born there. And you're also Kapampangan, so kind of twins. But anyway, I want to talk about how you're so creative. Like, adobo cookies, and you made also kare-kare cookies with bagoong caramel? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, how did you come up with the concept?
I think there's so much like amazing like savory dishes in like Filipino cooking that I think it's really fun to incorporate that into desserts, especially since a lot of times, desserts can be very sweet. So I like to kind of tone down the sweetness a bit and have some contrast with either very sour flavors like sinigang inspired kind of cookies as well. But also the savory and like umami from the bagoong caramel and the kare cookies.
I'm just amazed looking at all your work and understanding that, if I'm not mistaken, you're a bit self-taught when it comes to your craft. And here you are doing weird things that we couldn't imagine here at home. Just can you give us maybe a snapshot of how it all happened to you and the craziness that is your creativity?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up, baking for fun. And then during 2020, when everyone was baking during the pandemic, I was also posting what I was making online. And I think that really resonated with people, especially making food with Filipino flavors. And that's how I got like a book deal, was basically posting on Twitter, and an agent found me through there. And yeah, and it's kind of history is like everything else is like I get to do what I love, like just, like with everyone like around the world now. Like I've gotten to go to the Philippines, I've gotten to go all around the US. So it's very special. I'm so lucky and so grateful to be here.
You know, I feel like the what do you call this? The blending of two different flavors is such a challenge, because I remember when I was still in baking and culinary school, one of the most challenging things that I encountered was really putting together a totally different flavor with something like sour and sweet, or maybe savory and sweet, right? When you were putting together your recipes, or as you continue, creating recipes, what is that flavor combination that actually surprised you? Like, oh, this actually works.
I feel like, well, I know like we talked about the adobo chocolate chip cookies, but I think I was really surprised that like I think having soy sauce and having the bay leaf, and also like pink peppercorn, all those flavors, floral, spicy, herbal, and like very like salty from the soy, just makes sense. And I think that like it's very fun to find the balance of all those flavors. And sometimes people say less is more, but sometimes I think I'm more maximalist. I think more is better.
Yeah.
I don't mind like playing with it.
It's so funny because you take a look at, you compare the hot kitchen to when you're baking. It's almost, you have to get down to a science. And the ingredients that you're using, you remind me of a mad scientist actually, in the way that you do your work. But as you mentioned, you did visit the Philippines. You actually visited last month, if I'm not mistaken. You teamed up with Chef Jack Laudico to showcase your unique desserts. Of course, coming to the Philippines, understanding a bit more of where the food comes from, and of course what it means to Filipinos. Just what does it mean for you personally to be a louder voice for this particular cuisine in the world stage?
Yeah, I mean, it was very it was a wonderful trip to go to Guevara's and to also do this collaboration with Chef Jack and also Lobby 385. And it's just like, so for me, being Filipino American, I think a lot of the food that I make has kind of like a Western twist, or I think American kind of go towards more global also flavors too, just because of all the diversity here. So it's just, for me, I'm like one voice out of many that I love Filipino food in the Philippines, and I got a better appreciation of everyone that I got to meet and all that I learned about how, I guess like that's how amazing that all the produce and all like the amazing kind of flavors that we get sometimes bottled and preserved in America that you get fresh in the Philippines is so, it's so different, and so I loved getting to experience that firsthand.
Yeah, now, Chef Abby, I'm so curious because you already made bagoong caramels. So during your trip here in the Philippines, have you seen any Filipino ingredients or like a dish you've tried that you haven't yet experimented with, but you want to try to maybe reimagine into something sweet?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if answers this exactly, but in Intramuros, we went to a cafe there, and I think I'm trying to remember the name. And I think it had like starts with an I, but it was basically like there was sampaguita ice cream.
Ooh.
And it was so good. It was like they used like fresh sampaguita, and I was like very kind of like, even when now I think of when I want to make something savory, I'm like, oh, maybe if I had fresh sampaguita, I could make something really cool with that. But no, it was very eye-opening. I also had puto bumbong for the first time, which I know that's not savory either.
All right, so just to help people out, the restaurant is Ilustrado.
Oh, you
It was not yet. So sorry. I mean, I feel so bad.
No worries, because people will be hunting for that sampaguita ice cream. So I completely understand. Of course, for those who are wondering as well, if you see in the bottom of the screen a while ago, we flashed that she is a James Beard Award winner as well for emerging talent. And I loved your speech because you said you are American, but you're Filipino first. Do you feel that your connection to the Philippines is just that much stronger because of the work that you're doing? You're probably making more Filipino desserts than some people here in the Philippines are, to be quite frank.
You know, I am so like, I think because I have family still in the Philippines, and also I have, you know, friends in the Philippines, I think it's very much like grounding for me that even though I'm very thousands of miles away here in New York, I still feel like my connection is with like where my motherland is from and where my parents are from. I think I'm very much like, I don't know, I think because when you're walking around in America and like no one really knows where you come from, you could be from anywhere, and I think that like I try to like keep my Filipino identity and like pride always like at the forefront. So yeah, it's always special for me to meet more Filipinos wherever we are in the diaspora. But I think coming back to the Philippines, especially Manila, since my family's from Pampanga, this is the very first time I got to like be in Manila proper and hang out with people and meet so many great people. So that was really great. I can't say anything else except it was amazing. Like I loved it. I wish to do it again very soon.
Now, Abby, I want to put the spotlight on that cookbook of yours, Mayumu, right? Which is kind of like a love letter to Filipino desserts, like fusing together Filipino and American flavors in these desserts. What inspired you to put these recipes together? And I'm actually curious, what was the most challenging recipe to perfect in that book?
I think for me, it's very surprising because my dad's leche flan, like it's his specialty. And then for some reason, I had to make it 10 times and I used 10 egg yolks per recipe.
It's hard to make leche flan, huh?
I know.
It's really,
you think it's very simple.
I know, it looks so simple.
It's always the simplest things that the hardest to
Yes, that's true.
So that was my chai leche flan, and it has a little bit of like warm spices from like my grandma's recipe. So it is like a nice fusion also, but like I struggled a lot with making sure it was perfect. So I understand. You can over steam it and you can overcook it very easily.
That's true, yes.
So.
And you don't want those bubbles there and everything?
No, you have to strain to make sure that you like also slowly whisk. You don't want to over whisk. It's so much. It's interesting how hard it is.
Now, Chef Abby, how has the Filipino American community received your cookbook?
It's been like a amazing reception. People have been so nice to me. Like I know that one of my friends teaches like a Filipino American history class, and they like use my book also to talk about like Philippine like and it feels like I just can't believe it because it's for me like I grew up here and like I think that with all the Filipinos, especially in the Bay Area, especially like over in like New Jersey, I have had so much like positive reception and even in places where you wouldn't think there are many Filipinos, like people still show up for me. So I'm very grateful.
Yeah, and I'm obsessed with the colors of your cookbook. Super, very on brand. But I want to ask, so if there's somebody who wants to try the Filipino dessert for the first time, which recipe from your cookbook, Mayumu, would you recommend as their gateway treat?
Ooh, the gateway treat. I think that it's so simple. This recipe, I'm gonna say the Fiesta fruit salad. I love nata de coco. I love using like anything that is for someone that finds baking difficult. I think salad when you're just literally emptying like the bottles and cans of fruit and also just like having like a creamy base. It's a perfect party food and to share. And so I think that is a good gateway. But also I think if you make ube halia, I have it in 3 ways. I think that is kind of
Ooh.
the signature kind of, I feel like people need to start off with ube for sure too.
Yeah,
Ube is life.
it feels like ube is the global gateway to Philippine cuisine, at least pastries and sweets. But you take I'm just curious, Mayumu, the title, where does it come from? Because I think about Mayura,
It's sweet. It means sweet in
banana.
Kapampangan.
Yeah, Mayumu sweet in Kapampangan.
Maruya.
Yeah, Maruya, sorry.
Yeah,
Maruya in the banana. So, yeah, Mayumu sweet in Kapampangan. You see, I learned something new today.
Yeah,
We don't know all the dialects here. But, all right, there's also the hashtag Pasalubong treat box series that wasn't just about food. You used it to actually help people out as well. I mean, like, first off, how did that idea come about? And, of course, why was it so important for you to use your platform in that way, especially since you were still developing it a few years ago?
Yeah, I mean, for the pasalubong treat boxes, I would just make desserts that a lot of them are in Mayumu now, but a lot of them are just the Filipino American fusion desserts that I would come up with. And then I would post the recipe on my blog, The Dusky Kitchen. And that was also like a way for people to know, like, oh, even if you don't live in New York, where I was like selling the boxes and then donating the proceeds to mutual aid funds and local charity organizations, then like you would be able to make it at home. And so I think it was a great foundation of like people knowing who I am and what my baking was about. But also I think it was a great way to kind of get in with the community when we couldn't because of the quarantine and because of the pandemic. So I thought it was really special to kind of reach out to people through sweets, through their love of sweets and desserts, even though we couldn't necessarily like be in the same room enclosed. I would do drop-offs in the park. We would drop it off at people's homes, like no contact kind of a thing. So it was
Yeah.
a very different time, but also I think, yeah, like so important in the beginning of my career as well.
It was a different time, but we all know what you're talking about. I can guarantee you we all do.
I know 5 years now. It doesn't feel like that's the amount of time that passed.
You know, Abby, Filipino cuisine is finally getting more global recognition, and you can see a lot of Filipino restaurants popping up in other countries, right? What shifts have you noticed, and where do you hope to see it go next?
I think this is just because personally I went here very recently for the first time last year or in the past year. But Kasama, I think a lot of people have heard of Kasama because it's the Michelin
Yes.
restaurant in Chicago. But
Yeah.
chefs Tim and Jeannie are incredible. In LA, there's Kuya Lord, also won a James Beard in the same year that I did. I don't know. I just feel like it's always really cool to see everyone's take on Filipino cuisine, and I think it's always very unique. So I'm always seeking that out, and if I could, once I travel a little bit more, I feel like I haven't gone on more international trips in a long time, so I think I want to see actually more Filipino food elsewhere too.
Now, Chef Abby, before we let you go, I am so eager to get my hands on your cookbook. So where can we find your cookbook? Do you guys have like ebooks or anything like that?
Yeah, so actually there's a now like at National Bookstore, there's like a special pre-order. So I saw different book plates when I was there at the Guevara's event. So that's available. And I think there's still some more copies perhaps at Fully Booked in Green Hill, so close to Guevara's. So if they're not, I'm sorry if they're sold out already, but National Bookstore should also have them.
Noted on that. Well, thank
We
you so
hope you're
much.
sold out. I'm sorry. We hope we can't get it because you're too successful. But then again, thank you so much for being here with us here today.
Yes, that was Chef Abi Balingit from Brooklyn, New York. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you. Have a good rest of your day.